you see how rich, how many indicators are in this scoreboard. There are so many indicators focusing on explaining and studying what is the financing of SMEs. Why SMEs? Because SMEs are really the backbones of the economies. In Luxembourg, companies with less than 250 employees are the great majority, 90+%, and they represent more than 60%, 2/3 roughly, of added value and employment. So the financing of SMEs is key for the economic development. The goal of the presentation of Camila was to give a sense how rich, how many indicators that allows to compare the evolution of financial market in Luxembourg with other OECD countries, and not only. And behind this exercise, there is a lot of work, a lot of data collection. This is exactly what we are going now to present. The example, the exercise of AnaCredit. Can you see? And this is which is the basic source of this, which is the raw data, where they are coming from. And this work is was conducted by me and Sasha Gogo, the colleague from Central Bank, Banque Centrale du Luxembourg. And here the goal will be to go deep into the source of the data and see how data can help us to trace the evolution of SMEs financing. So this is a pilot study, and why this is the case is because the figures presented were using the old methodology, and we are going now to present the old and the new methodologies, how they change in some indicators, and in order to collect as well your feedback and sense of these changes. I will show how AnaCredit data. AnaCredit stands for Anagraphique de Crédit.
Analytical credit data set.
Voilà, thank you. And this will inform the new waves of the scoreboard. And the goal will be to compare of this presentation the AnaCredit and the data from interest rate statistic, ERS for short. The current data source for Luxembourg is the ERS. All the figures presented before were drawn from the interest rate statistics. That is a statistics mainly for monetary purpose. And they basically look at how banks charge or pay loans. They pay loans on deposit. And this is the usual source of information. But there are some limitations of this data source. First of all is the definition of SMEs that is based on the loan size, because we define loans to SMEs or loans that are below 1 million euros, and not on the firm side who is receiving the loans. The other major limitation is in terms of geographical origins, because before we were using information about Luxembourgish bank offering loans to SMEs in the Eurozone. And what I have in mind, I want to explain in the future, in the next slide. Here, basically, we have the residents of the lending financial institution, basically banks, but not only, can be Luxembourgish or Eurozone. At the same time, it's important to look at the residents of the receiver of the loans. It can be Luxembourgish or from Eurozone. And here we saw that the ERS looks at Luxembourg and the Euro area, at least the data that I was using before, while we are interested more to know the resident, to see the amount of money that flows to SMEs in Luxembourg. This is exactly what AnaCredit is aiming to achieve. AnaCredit overview, I leave it to the, voila.
Okay, so AnaCredit exists since 2018, and it's a rather new granular data collection. It is related to a lot of problems because of the granularity. It means analytical credit data set, where we are, since September 2018, we collect on loan level basis loans given by banks in Luxembourg and also by the branches of Luxembourgish banks. And on each loan, we collect one or two variables, which you can see on the next slide. Basically, we are collecting on the left side the instrument data, which is the most important information on loans, like the interest rate, the reset date of the interest rate when it's a variable loan, the purpose of the loan, and so on. Also, we collect accounting data, if it's still performing, if it's recognized on the balance sheet, and so on. Then we collect data on the protection, which is collateralizing the instrument. So if you buy a house, the simplest example, if you buy a house, the bank gets the mortgage as the security. So that's the protection of the loan. And then we also collect the counterparty reference data, which is all data related to the debtor, the creditor, the servicer, and the originator if the loans are sold to another bank. As it's a granular data which holds one or two variables, banks do a lot of mistakes, and they use old databases which are not always up to date. Where sometimes they use for the interest rate statistics, they use one database, and for AnaCredit they created something new, and when we match the two, there are so many mistakes that we have to correct both sides. This means that we have, if everything goes well, we have 540 submissions. We have 540 submissions for the Luxembourg population. But if we look at the average per reference period, we have around 1,090 resubmissions. So every bank at least submits 2 times their reports to us until we get a good quality for our end users. Per month, we collect around 45,000 debtors. In AnaCredit, we have 115,000 instruments provided by Luxembourgish banks, and they are protected by 172,000 protections. When we look up the data from 2018 to June 2022, we see that we are working with big data. If we want to analyze the data, we have to use machine learning tools because you cannot read every observation with 1 or 2 variables to see if everything is reported correctly. The problem in AnaCredit is you have so many variables which are working interactively, so that you can't put a validation rule on all those to find all the errors. This is why we are working a lot with the end users, which tell us, okay, the interest rates of 50%, it should be an outlier, and so on. So we adapt our validation rules to spot those errors. Yeah, put everything on.
Yep. So put back.
No more.
No.
So the main advantage in AnaCredit is really the granularity, where you have so many variables to define if it's a performing loan, non-performing loan, if it's recognized on the balance sheet. If you can basically say everything you need to know on the credit. There's nothing you don't really know. The only thing which we don't know for the SME study is the gender of the company, which is for us not really relevant. Like for us, it's relevant that it's the company which takes the loan, if it's in Europe or outside of Europe. So yeah, we have access to the ECB database, where we have all the AnaCredit data also from other central banks collected. So any company in Luxembourg, we know exactly how many loans they have. If they took a loan from Germany or France or Luxembourg, we know everything. For the SME identification, we collect the number of employees, the financial data, the balance sheet, and the turnover. And with this data, you can define exactly if it's an SME or not, which was not the case with the interest rates before. Furthermore, yeah, we collect economic activity, and yeah, we collect data from everywhere.
Information, yeah. We already no,
go back. Go back. Okay, the main limitations in AnaCredit, in order to not put too much effort to banks, we have put a limit of below 25,000. So below 25,000, the loans don't have to be reported, because normally those are small companies which it's difficult to get data from, because banks cannot waste too much time on small companies to collect the data during KYC. but we are comparing AnaCredit to the balance sheet item statistics at ECB, and we collect around 99.5%. So all those loans below 25,000 only make 0.5% of the total loans, where we think we have a good enough coverage. We have data from 2018 onwards, but the data in the beginning was not really good because it was new to all the banks and we needed to get all our checks into place, and this took a bit of time. So from 2021 onwards, we have good data which can be used for statistics and can soon replace the old reports of the Central Bank of Luxembourg. As said, yeah, we know I have no information on gender, and it's not publicly available. That's the largest problem in AnaCredit. No researcher is allowed to use the data. Just through the central bank, you can get aggregates, which you can then use in your publications.
And this is exactly the case of our publication. Sasha was conducting the analysis, and we were focusing among so many indicators. We were looking at the new loans to SMEs. And we are analyzing two main features. First, the cross-border lending. So we are trying to account for the residents of the bank and the receivers, the SMEs. And we are able to implement completely the Eurostat SMEs definition, not only the number of employees, but as well turnover and the balance sheet, in order to capture the true SMEs. Some technical details. Quarterly data were annually aggregated in order to have the annual dimension that's required from the scoreboard. Fiduciary and intercompany loans are excluded to prevent double counting, and we excluded as well the missing observation that around 4.7% of all the sample. So, which is the results of this exercise? This looks complicated, but stay with me. The Luxembourg SMEs received roughly 13 billions of new business loans. That means loans that are the new contracts that are closed, all in all in 2023. That represents 77% of these loans were coming from banks that were based in Luxembourg, but that means that 23% are coming from banks based abroad. So we are documenting an important cross-border lending activity that takes place that is important for the SMEs in Luxembourg. At the same time, so we see that Luxembourg banks provided 32 million of new loans to Euro area SMEs. It's not really surprising, knowing how important is the financial hub in Luxembourg. But that represents 75% of the total SMEs loans that are the banks running. At the first, I was a bit surprised about this study, and I was happy to figure out that the recent work of ECB of July 2024 documents the total cross-border activity in all Eurozone, accounting for around 14% of all loans. So that means that somehow our data match the general trend. It's not only Luxembourg, but it's more general as well taking place. But in Luxembourg, it's more accentuated. Now we look at the amount of the new lendings by firm size and loan size. How bad was, how is it? Now we have the proper SMEs definition, and I want to compare with the size of the loans to see which figures are appearing. Here is on the left, you have, we observe that 30% of all new loans are going to SMEs. And this accounts, that's roughly 13 billions, about over 46 billions of total. That represents 69% of new loans from SMEs are above $1 million. That makes sense, considering that if you buy a new truck, a new implants, 1 million euros is not so much if you are financing a capital investment. So it's not surprising that SMEs are taking loans above 1 million euros. What may, at the same time, we observe that 43% of new loans for large firms are above 1 million. This was a bit more difficult to reconcile. Possible is because large companies may access other financing instruments than bank loans, and this is one possible explanation, because that means that this is quite important. But this is one. This is what the data shows. Looking now at the interest rate at which these loans are taken, because the cost of the loans are important. They are important to the fine investment decision of SMEs, and we will distinguish again among firm size and the loan size. And here we observe that the cost of financing is higher for SMEs regardless of the loan size. So SMEs pays on average more than large SMEs for their loans. The interest rate, the average interest rate for 2023 for SMEs was around 6.13% compared to 4.1% of large SMEs. So there is a considerable gap that may hinder the development of SMEs. Large loans cost approximately 1 percentage point less than small loans. I have only 10 minutes. I would like to go fast because I want to present the rest and take some questions, if any. So now I'm comparing how the new indicators based on AnaCredit compares with the ERS, the old database that used it. And we observe that there is a huge difference. AnaCredit reports 13 billions of euros, while ERS for the same year reports just 3 billions. There's a huge difference if we take information from one data source or the other one, and if we apply the correct definition of SMEs and loans. And over time, we can see as well how this is an impact over time. And we see the percentage of total new lendings. The blue line is the ERS, and the yellow line is the AnaCredit. And we observe 30% compared to 12% in 2023. So, and this is more close. I want to emphasize that the dotted line, the 27%, is the median percentage of new SMEs loans in the OECD countries. So we observe that the AnaCredit place Luxembourg above the median of the OECD, while the ERS place below. Looking at the interest rate paid, same before, we observe that AnaCredit reports higher interest rate paid compared to the ERS for 2023, and the same applies when looking over time. The figure is the same. The blue line is the Luxembourgish ERS, the yellow is the AnaCredit, and we observe that the gap, the spread between large and SMEs, it's higher when using the right indicator. And this is closer to the other one. So I want to sum up the main takeaway. AnaCredit is much better, enhanced accuracy of monitoring SMEs financing. Has many advantages because we can use the right definition of SMEs and of loans. But there are some challenges associated. First of all, introducing AnaCredit creates a major break in the series. So we will be not able to compare before and after anymore. Emphasize the critical role of accessing the data and the quality of the data that we're using for our reporting. We observed that this presentation was done as well in the OECD informal meeting of SMEs in September, and that Germany, the Bundesbank, was presenting the similar exercise conducted with AnaCredit in Germany. And we emphasized the discussion was calling for a common guidelines in order to assure comparability across country and over time using this huge data set. And calls probably a centralized data processing from the OECD. That's something that's conducted because all this analysis is conducted ad hoc from Sasha for the purpose of the OECD SMEs financing exercise. Thank you. Sorry if we are a bit later than expected, but it was important for me to bring different voices all together on the same tables, giving an overview of how rich the data are there, how rich the data are, and how important it is to look at the details of the data generation and the data production and definition. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a quick question clarifying. I think I misunderstood the beginning. Is this going to go into the new OECD, or this? You said this is a pilot study, so the current scoreboard is based on the previous. So will this go anywhere? Where will this go? And related, is Eurostat? You said Bundesbank is using this. Is anybody else using it?
First question. This is a pilot study. We did the comparison because of this, to be aware what it was going to be. There will be a working paper, hopefully to be published as EcoStat, in order to open the discussion about how to proceed further. My personal view is that we should implement the new data set. Bundesbank is the only one using this data AnaCredit for the time being. They use it for the current data collection 2023. We plan to use it for the next year onwards, and probably revised up to 2021. No, for the time being, to the best of my knowledge, Camilla can correct me if I'm wrong, only Germany and Luxembourg are using AnaCredit, but there was a huge interest from other member states delegates in order to, especially the Netherlands and other Eurozone delegates, to learn more and to use this data set, the AnaCredit methods. This exercise is yearly repeated since 2009, so this will probably inform next OECD scoreboard. Thank you.
Yes, just to complement very quickly, Germany didn't provide the data before. Actually, last year was the first year that they started to provide data. Before they were just providing policy information, and they start using AnaCredit to report on the scoreboard indicators. They managed, I understand that AnaCredit started some years ago, and they started to report up from 2019. So not the huge data series that we normally have. We have actually data from countries from 2007. They started provided from 2019, but with the granularity, with the potential of having those granularities that Cesar just mentioned.
Well, I'd just like to add, if the StatSec wants to access AnaCredit, perhaps they should go via the European institution which StatSec reports to. Is it OECD? Or who StatSec reports to at the European level? Is there no?
Coordinated by Eurostat.
Well, Eurostat.
We don't report to.
Okay. Well, then you could perhaps ask via Eurostat to have access to AnaCredit, because I saw now CSSF. The CSSF has also access to AnaCredit via the supervision part of the European institutions. So if you are interested in AnaCredit, you could ask the access via Eurostat.
A quick clarification. One is concerned the AnaCredit data. I might have missed it during the presentation, but basically what you collect is data on the whole population of transactions. It's not a survey. So no, you basically collect information from it, complete data.
For every legal entity.
And the second point is, I understand the big advantage that this data bring to the table so that you can correctly track the origin and the destination of some of these financing methods. But when you use this at the aggregate level, let's say at the OECD level, don't you risk to do double counting? Because the import of a financing instrument in Luxembourg is equivalent to the export of the same instrument from the sending country.
No, during our calculations, we exclude transferred amounts. So any loan which is transferred to, I don't know, to Germany would be excluded in Luxembourg. So in Germany, it would be counted to the bank which received the loan. And intra-company loans anyway, we exclude. So it's no double counting included. Basically, we take all the steps that any country can do the analysis while not doing any double counting.
Thank you.
Any question from the chat?
Not for the moment.
Perfect.
We asked for the recording of the presentation and the slide, and we will publish this in the website after the seminar.
I have an idea. So right now, basically, I imagine it's quite obvious that you're going to get a difference between the AnaCredit results and the previous ones because it's based on an assumption. And what you have now is a way to maybe adjust the assumption about the size of the loan. So what you could do is to try to reduce the gaps between the estimate from the AnaCredit. So say, for example, the interest rate that is observed for SMEs using AnaCredit and the interest rate that is observed using the previous. But then you can change the assumption on the loan size because the SMEs are defined based on loan sizes of above 1 million. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And that's an assumption. And you could change that assumption perhaps to see if you can get a better match.
Changing when you use the IRS to see if you can match. Okay.
Well, there's a bit of problem because the IRS, for which I'm also responsible, is collected at the aggregated level already from the banks. So the bank reports to us 0 to 1 million, 1 million to, I don't know, whatever aggregate is there. You don't have granular to, well, you could do a percentage calculation and guess it, but.
Okay, so there's not much you can do.
There's no granular data, it's aggregated data.
Yeah, maybe just to add there that one important thing that we look at is the SME definition, right? And the SME definition tends to be at the European level when looking at loan size at the threshold that Cesar mentioned. If we change that threshold, we're changing the definition of SME. So for one country will be different, and then it won't be entirely comparable. And what we want is basically to have that the same entity that we're studying, which is the SME, across countries. In the case of Germany, they also use the same threshold using the SME definition at the EU level. So this is something actually that we are advocating at the OECD to try, because in the EU level the definition is standard. This is not the case on other countries, and what we advocate is to have a preferred SME definition, and other countries to try to go towards that definition. So then the scoreboard would be much more comparable.
Good. So we are 2 minutes late than scheduled, even though we had some technical problem at the beginning. If there are no more comments or questions, we might close here the session, and thank you all for your attention to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Camila.
I've got a meeting coming up. I'm sorry if I'm not.